Okay, we're starting early, and we're going to learn the Maamar. This is a Maamar the Rebbe said, actually, in Camp Gan Yisrael, 1956, to the campers. We have a recording of this fabulous Maamar. I think we could have learned it once. Either way, it's a Maamar I like to learn every year. And it's connected to this time of year. The Rebbe said it on the 16th of Tamuz, 1956. Again, this was said in camp, it means in the mountains and the Catskills, to the children of Gan Yisrael. The Maamar is a very deep Maamar, meaning you can say because it's deep, because it's a revolutionary idea. It's not a typical idea what you would find in a Maamar Chassidic, because usually Maamar Chassidic will celebrate, especially around this time of year when we talk about Yibes Tamuz, that the Nasati L'Reach and Nice idea of nisyonis, of challenges, not just any challenges, but even the challenge of a nisayon, which we've had many Maamarim around this time of year where it talks about the deep challenge of a test, which is even more than the challenge of things that have to be engaged, Birurim versus nisyonis. And here the Rebbe goes in a totally different direction in this wonderful Maamar. So the pasuk, we all know the chapter 23 of Tehillim, Mizmor L'David Hashem Ro'i. God is my shepherd. Lo yechser, I will not lack anything. When I go on the desha is the grass, so to say. Yarbitzeni al menuchas, and Haleni takes me across calm waters. So the Rebbe says, in Mizmor, what's the point of chapter 23? The whole, so to say, tone of the chapter 23 is David Malach Mashiach. David, the king, the anointed king, David HaMelech, King David. When he talks about the parnasa, the livelihood for the Jewish people or for the world in total, and especially Ba'at Knesset Yisrael, on behalf of the Jewish people, Ba'at Kol Echad V'Echad Yisrael, when he praises God for the parnasa he provides us, the livelihood he provides, the Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people as a whole, and each individual. Shekivan Shavaya Ro'i, that what David is saying is, what's this? What gives us certainty and assurance in God's providing for us? Because He's our shepherd. Is then it's obviously if He's our shepherd, we will lack nothing. For us, and then because He's our shepherd and we'll lack nothing, we have that certainty. He takes us on green pastures. He takes us through calm waters. The Talmud teaches us in the tractate of Pesachim that deals with the laws of Pesach. When we're talking about the Seder, which is Arvei Pesachim, the final chapter of Pesach, we talk about how does one conduct the Seder. So we know that there's 4 cups, and each cup we say something of that cup. The first cup is Kiddush, the second cup is Magid, the third cup is Benching. So what do we say in the 4th cup? So the Menuchah Pesachim says, the Kois Revi'ah Sha'omer L'Lav Hala Gadol. We say the great long halal. We'll get back to this in a second, but let's just see what the Gemara is saying. There's an opinion. What is this halal gadol? What is the great halal? And there's an opinion in the Talmud that says, what is considered the great halal? Hashem Ro'i. God is my shepherd, I will lack nothing. So the Mashra explains, commentary in the Talmud. According to the opinion of the Yeshayim, in the Mizmor It's not that the opinion is arguing and saying that we don't say halal gadol. We say chapter 23, which is Hashem Ro'i Lo Yachzer, but that is halal gadol. That is the great praise. What's halal gadol versus halal katan? Today, the accepted rule is that halal katan, the small halal, is from chapters, what is it, chapters 116 through 118, right? That's the halal that we say from Hallelujah. And why is it, where's the halal katan? Because we have 4 Hoydel Hashem Kitos. At the end, it's chapter, I think, 128, 138. That is the halal gadol, the 26th Hoydel Hashem Kitos, which is 26 verses 4, therefore it's called halal gadol. And we say that at the end, that's what we say in the Seder, the halal gadol. Everyone knows we say the long Hoydel Hashem Kitos, which is the same tefillah we say in Shabbos. That's called the halal gadol, the long halal. Now, that's what we say now. There's an opinion in the Talmud that says, what is halal gadol? Is Hashem Ro'i Lo Yachzer? chapter 23. And the Gemara explains. Why is it called the great Hallel, the great praise? Hallel means to praise. God stands in the highest of places, and He provides substance for every creation, right? Like we say, anything God creates, it's His concern to make sure that they're provided with. He won't create something that there's nothing to provide them with. And the Marsha again explains the commentary. Even according to the opinion, which is not the opinion that we accept, but according to the opinion in the Talmud that says that Mizmor L'David Hashem Ro'i, that the chapter 23 of God is my shepherd, I will lack nothing, which is that opinion is that it's Hallel, although that is the great Hallel. That what's the idea? Means the rule is the higher the place is, the lower it could go. And something like a circle, right? A small circle will start lower and end higher. So seemingly, you think someone who deals with big things, talks to smart people, that's not such a sign of how smart a person is. If someone could talk to less smart people, to children, and explain them a deep concept simply, that shows how well you understand something. So too, the higher the top of the circle is, the lower it can go. So that's where it says, Hashem Yoshev, He stands high above, and therefore He can provide for every substance, because of where He's from the place where He's standing, with that source of substance is coming for. Therefore, of course, He can provide for everything. So that's what the Marsha says. That Shagam, even according to the opinion that it's chapter 23, this is what the verse means to say. Hashem Ro'i, because God is my shepherd, and shepherd is Ro'i Ma'ishem Oilam, He's standing on a high place, and therefore He say from the place of it being a shepherd, He could watch Mashgiach and therefore provide for all the world. So therefore the person says, Gamani la yatser, I also won't be lacking. And they go together. Because He's sitting on such a high place, like I said, top of the circle is Machalak Mizanis L'Chaveri, therefore He could provide to the lowest to everything. With the higher you're standing, the lower you could go, the more detailed you could go, the more it's accepted, right? Again, smart people deal with only a certain type of person. I can only have a conversation with them. If someone says, I can only have a conversation with this person who's smarter, maybe not as smart as me, but smarter, I can only engage in people that are within my range, that means you're small too. If you're able to deal with anyone, you could be passionate, you have attention, you could be careful, you could have care for even the lowest of creations, is because of the high place we come from. The higher God is, the lower He can pay attention. And therefore He provides for every barrier, for every creation. Because He sits in such a high place, therefore He provides for everything. Moving, the Rebbe says, and that's the whole great praise. And they're also connected. Like I said, because He's sitting so high, therefore He's able to, and He does provide for everyone. This is the Zohar teaches us that David Malka told him that King David Malka means King David, told he that our mizainis, our substance, is dependent on Leila, on the elevation of God. Begin to Leila loy psik la'olim, because from the high place nothing ends. Smaller people get petty, get angry, hold back. A large person doesn't react that way. When God is in a large space, there's no psika, there's no end to what He can provide and what He will provide. The point of this Maamar again is the menuchah, is the certainty, the menuchah, how things, not everything in life has to come difficult. Is the way for things to come from an easy perspective, from an easy place. And because God is Ro'i, because He's my shepherd, I won't be lacking, means there will be no disconnect, or no ending of mizainis, of God providing me. Mizainis literally means food. God providing, mizainis represents your parnasa, your livelihood, when you have money to buy food, to have. The brachas is broken up into three categories. Bana is children, Chaya is health, long life, to live long, to be healthy, and Mizainis is to provide for our parnasa. In this pasuk, it's specifically talking about parnasa. This is a special chapter when someone needs parnasa. The Rebbe is going to quote it in the Maamar that when a person needs parnasa, it's the Arizal says to say chapter 23. It's a custom you should say it every day. There, the Rebbe quotes that. But but the idea is also included in it is all the brachos, not just Mizainis, but also Chayi and Banek for parnasa and for children. The point is, when something comes from such a high place, the high elevated place within the world, no one lacks, and of course, including myself, means each person themselves, says chapter 20. Because God provides provisions for every creation, and the Rebbe says in the footnote, in the brackets over here, when we say creation, the word bari means a creation. I know, even when the only thing you could say about this creation is that it's a creation of God. You have certain things that are not defined by being a creation. I've made myself into something. I've worked hard on myself. Let's say a person who works very hard on himself. It's a famous idea that Rebbe quotes from the Rebbe, from Pirkei Avos, that brios. When you talk about brios, Kabri brios, the brios means it's something like, what can you say about this person? He's a creation from God. It means he or she has done nothing with their life. They've not developed, they haven't worked on themselves, but they're still a creation from God. So brios is not literally the lowest, the only thing good you can say about that person. And nevertheless, God provides the whole variable for a high place, even if the only thing you could say about this creation, that it's a creation of God, God provides. Very adaptive. Even if you just, the only thing you could define this person, this thing by, is that it's a creation of God. Which the author explains in time. God leads us in green pastures and along calm waters. The idea of taking us through green pastures and calm waters is also because when it comes from such a high place, the bracha, the parnasa, doesn't come in a rushing river or tripping over the pastures. It's a nice green, it's nice, it's all about the menucha. Menuchas. The Rebbe explains on this. To start, the Rebbe focuses on the concept of menucha, which is the point of this whole mind. What does it mean on calm waters? God will walk me along calm waters. But that's the idea of calmness. First, in general, the best, in my opinion, the best bracha, blessing you give someone is menucha. Menucha is state of mind. Menucha means calm. To be calm, everything has to be right, at least in your perspective. A person who's calm is because there's no anxiety, there's no stress, there's no things that cause stress. Menucha is a sub-result of Baruch Hashem, things are the way they should be. So therefore, the bracha over here is in chapter 23. May menucha is calmness, menucha. In Yaksiv, like it says about the temple, in Rambam, and when we come to the menucha, to a place of calmness and the place of our inheritance, and therefore we say kuma avaya menucha secha, God should come up to his place of menucha, of resting. Hanefesh clothes in the menucha. What is the idea of menucha? What does menucha go hand in hand with? Kosher in Yerushalayim Beis Hamikdash. It's talking about good times in Jerusalem, standing where it should, times when the Holy Temple is standing where it should. Was that Gufar Ikahu Beis Hamikdash Maamar, and where's the true place of menucha, the place where the ark is? They do an idea. What's the idea of the calmness with the menucha that's in the ark? The Kisra Rebbe says like upon him, the Rebbe again talk. The children's age just says in short. When it comes to engaging in working on things, like I said, there's life when we go into. So usually you get based Tamuz that I was talking about. In Nisyanis, which is even harder, difficulties, things that are difficult, not just things that you're engaging. But Birurim means things that are difficult, but you engage in it, and therefore you could transform it, you could work with it. Nisyanis, you have to just walk away. So when it comes to engaging, there's two ways to engage in something. There's b'derech menucha, calm. Everything is calm. B'derech menucha, sometimes there's a struggle. And in avodah, that's also the struggle within yourself. The Yetzer Hara. That's what it means when you come to the place of menucha and nachla, to the inheritance in the place of calmness. Like in times of King Solomon, that was the greatest time of our history, especially when it comes to shalom b'yamav, the idea of peace, tranquility, menucha. The kindness Seder Musa. Again, this is around the 15th of the month, when the Jewish people at the full moon, the 15 generations from Avram to Shlomo Melech. David is 14, Shlomo is 15. Everything was done like Shlomo Melech did it in a way of calmness. Shlomo didn't fight wars like David. Even the 14th generation was fighting. Malchus Shiva, like we find, the Queen of Sheba. Everyone knows the story. The Queen of Sheba comes from somewhere in Africa, and she comes and brings all the gifts to the temple to Shlomo Melech. The Rebbe talks many times that in those gifts and all the gold and silver and all the other things that the delicacies that she brought Shlomo Melech, she was bringing all from all the tumah, from all the sparks that got lost in the dark places of Africa. She came and she brought it to Shlomo Melech. And that's that Shlomo didn't have to fight. Usually when it comes to finding a nitzitz, finding a spark, you have to battle to get the spark, to release the spark from tumah. And here the Queen of Sheba comes and brings it herself. The Rebbe only says many times that the differences between the Queen of Sheba when she came and brought to Shlomo Melech the sparks, but she went back home. That's why it wasn't Mashiach. She brought it to Shlomo, but she went back to where she came from, which is the place of the tumah. But when Mashiach comes, it's going to be only a one-way, one direct. All roads are going to be leading towards Jerusalem. Who built the temple? Shlomo Melech. So the idea of menucha is represented in the concept of the Beis Hamikdash. Now the Rebbe is going to explain. What does this mean? This is an interesting concept. We know that when we're talking about what does it mean God rests in a specific place. Specifically, when we say that the main point of God's resting place, the holiest place, is the Holy of Holies, between the badim, between the poles that are in the holy on the ark. So how does that work? That God is in a specific place. Why is the Holy of Holies holier than outside the temple? What's so special about the Holy of Holies? So there's a discussion, an argument between the Ramban and Rambam. Nachmanides and Maimonides. Moshe Menachem. The Dasa Rambam, according to the opinion of Rambam, and those who hold the opinion of the Rambam, Maimonides, they keep mentioning the Gelu Ruchnis Bechlal. Because when we're talking about spirituality, godliness, even more so godliness, God is beyond space. What does it mean that God is specifically in the Holy of Holies? The Holy of Holies is more special than someplace else. How do you answer that? So the Rambam answers. It's Menuchah 12, verse 12. Menuchah, yeah. So this is Menuchah. So he says, what does it mean? So he answers, that's why I say, the Kibbutz Shebenegei L'Ruchnius Bechlal L'Achskam Kam Likus Yesh Leim Shuni Kashim Vakum. Okay, so if we have to say, Sheinin Hashar Sashchina, what does it mean God rests? We welcome him in a specific place. Well, the Achmashal Moidover Seichel, when you have something intellectual. Shekois Ro'i say they etzbeseyad. Right? When you write something, you have a deep idea. You type it, you write it, right? Using your fingers. What's the connection between a deep idea with your fingers? Because the only way you could write is with your fingers. That's how you communicate or put into writing what a deep idea. If you would try to type with your toes, or write with your toes, and probably wouldn't be that successful. So what's the difference between your toes and your fingers? Not because your fingers understand better than your toes understand. And therefore, only your fingers could write something, but your toes can't. That's not how it works. Everyone knows that, right? Because there's no way that your fingers understand more than your toes, because they don't understand anything either. Your fingers don't understand something, but there's a communication that between the brain and the fingers that say what to write. So what's the point? But you have to put the idea down on paper, in a place, on a piece of paper, or on a computer, what have you. That means to write something. Means the fingers are just like a way it passes through. The message passes through. When you write the letters, you're going to put on it. So you could register you could just make what they call it in Hebrew, shish bushim, whatever it's called, just drawing, making circles. But when you write letters, and letters make words, and words make form ideas, and ideas are deep ideas, is why? Because it's passing through your hands, the idea, but it's in the brain. Not that your hands understand it, your fingers understand it. That's how the Rambam explains what does it mean that God is, sort of say that the presence of God is in a specific place. It's like an idea in the fingers. The idea is not in the fingers. It's just that's how it passes through. It's not really typical. It's not really because the place of the Beis Hamikdash is better than another place. In order for instance, right? How's someone going to read what I want to say? It has to go someplace. It has to go on a piece of paper. How does it get on a piece of paper? Because I have to write it. So that's just a method for someone to understand. So too, for a person to have communications with what's called Holy of Holies, with that level of godliness, it has to go to a certain place. And a person is limited to space. Is how to say, oh, but Beis Hamikdash goes to the temple. And it goes to the temple, goes to the Holy of Holies. Just like an idea that passes through the fingers, but not the idea is the difference between, as is explained soon, derech maiber or derech slapshus. Does it just pass through the fingers? It passes through that space? Or does it enclose itself in that space? And that space actually contains it in a way that is like a brain. And the Ramban says no. The Ramban disagrees with the Ramban with an N. Nachmanides says, and that's how Chassidus accepts it. How did it work in the Beis Hamikdash? Not like the Rambam says that it's just passing through, like something passes through your fingers. How did Hashem reveal so? In the Beis Hamikdash, specifically in the Kodesh Kodashim, it's not like something that goes through the fingers, an idea, a deep idea that goes through the fingers and then is articulated on a piece of paper. And it's the fingers versus the head, the toes, the Holy of Holies versus outside the Holy of Holies. It's the way this is the way an idea goes into the brain, and the brain does understand the intellect. And therefore the heart feels it, not just it passes through the heart. The heart actually digests and it gets affected by the information. The brain gets affected by the information. That's not like the fingers. The fingers, could care less what it's writing. It's not like the fingers are going to turn around and say to you, oh, what's that? It's not passing through the brain. The brain actually understands the idea. Therefore, it has differences. And there's different parts of the brain, how it processes information. And then it's specifically how your heart processes that information emotionally. Not just that the brain understands it, but the brain becomes sharper and clearer the more you use it for something intellectual. If you use your brain properly, you're sharpening it. So it gets affected by what the type of things you put inside of it. You're going to put shtuyot in it, you're going to have a stupid brain. If you're going to put logical thoughts, thoughtful, deep ideas, you're going to sharpen your brain. Especially when you have to actually really toil in an idea. Because unlike the fingers, the brain actually becomes one with the idea itself, with the seichel. And that's how the Ramban learns. What does it mean that godliness rests in a specific place, specifically in the temple and the Holy of Holies, is that it becomes one with that place. This becomes a Makom Kodesh. It's not just it happens to pass through. The place itself becomes one with godliness. With the Shekhinah, the way it means the level of godliness, the way he rests in the world. And the difference between, if it goes to the idea of going through the fingers or going through the brain, is the difference if it's just passing through, or if it encloses itself and becomes one with it. Are you going to ask the question? But one will ask the question. At the end of the day, the Kibbutz Shruch is but God is beyond place. The reason the Rambam says it's only passing through is because God's not beyond place. It doesn't mean that God now becomes specific to this place. It's not tied down to place. How can he be enclosed himself in a place? God's beyond space. You're limiting it. So the bottom line answer is like when we have any real question, because God can do whatever he wants. He's not, by limiting God to being too spiritual or too limitless, is itself a limitation. By saying to God, you can't be in this space because you're beyond this space, then you're limiting where he can be. By saying God has to be kind means the fact that you're saying when every time you say God has to do something, that's a limitation. Even if it's for the positive, even if it's a way of saying you're too great for anything beyond that. You can tell me what I can do. You're limiting where I could be. He can do whatever he wants. Therefore, he can make it that he's mislavish himself. The infinite goes into a finite space. That's the idea of Nimna Ham Nimnois. Just like you see him in big mirrors, you can see him in small mirrors. Just like he can be huge, he can be small. Means bottom line, can't ask a question, how does something be? How could God be limited? He decides if he wants to. Because he can do whatever he wants. From this is understood. And this God specifically pointed to Ramban. Achmanis went to this place and enclosed himself in this space. Again, where does it come from? It comes from, again, the higher something is, the lower it can go. A small circle starts lower. A big circle starts higher and it goes lower. Because the red level of godliness, the base of Midrash comes from such a high space, he's not even limited by the world, by the limitations of space. And even though space, in theory, is a contradiction to limitless, but God can do whatever he wants. And even and if it's coming from such a high place, he could be defined and be mislavish and clothe himself in a small space. And again, that's why menuchah. Where does the Rebbe getting at over here? It's an amazing idea. That menuchah, this is not chapter 23 is not just that God provides. And he provides in a way of menuchah. And when God provides in a way of menuchah, Hashem Ro'i is our shepherd. When you connect to God as your shepherd, that means he's connecting from such a high place that he doesn't have to give you things in turmoil. Not everything has to be a challenge. Sometimes things can come in easy, because easy is not the easy way out. Because it comes from such a hard place, it's not necessary for it to be struggle at this point. And that's what we daven Hashem Ro'i le'echstar parnasa. Should come in a way of menuchah. Because it comes from such a high place. It comes from such a high place of godliness, therefore could come into the defined space. Therefore it says he's limitless. I just finished this paragraph. That's the idea, like I said before, why the temple represents calmness, menuchah, tranquility. You came to the place of tranquility, the place of your inheritance. How does a person reach a level like Shlomo Melech? You don't have to fight. Queen Sheba brings it to you. Everything is in the way of calmness. It's like a great light that shines even a dark place. You don't have to go there. Like Shlomo Melech didn't travel. Like a big fire that everything comes to the fire. I said that's only from a high level of light. Much like the difference between a candle and a torch. Like a torch that lights far. Could even light up even a basement, the basement of a person. Even a place. That's why when you go into if you go into you see the movies, you go into a tunnel, and you go to a big dark place, you have to have a torch, you take a candle, the thickness of the air is going to put it out. So we're in the Beis Hamikdash, when it's coming from such a high place, therefore coming to a place of menuchah, of calmness. Even because such a high level of godliness, it could even be mislavish. And when it's mislavish, when it implodes itself in the way of menuchah and calmness. So because that's good, that God can do whatever he wants. And the higher it's come from, the more he's not limited to do what he wants. To do it in a specific way, even if it doesn't make sense. Even though you're saying he's so great, God can be limited in the space that he decided. He can go into that place, and therefore he can also give things to you without struggle, without the challenge, without the toil and the anxiety. Because it comes from such a high place. I can say, what do you mean, God? Why is God giving you a handout? Why is he making it easy? Because he's come from a place he doesn't care to make it easy for you. It's a place that doesn't get excited by the challenge, the difficulty of the battle for everything in avodah. Because it's coming from such a high place of light and source of light, illuminary, therefore you could engage and you could change things. Not in the way that you have to battle. Queen of Sheba. She comes and brings the light. Imagine you go out there and you want to say, there's a God out there, put on film, there's no pushback. Look how much darkness we have today. Every idea is pushing back. Just the craziness in the world today. People saying crazy stuff about Yiddishkeit, about godliness, about Jews. Such a pushback, such a milchama, such a koicha of tumor against it. But when it would be a great light, everyone would understand. That's what Mashiach is going to come. The thing that we find itself is in a holy place. I feel in Menuchah, even if it's far away, it's just Magdusha. It all gravitates to the lights, to the calmness, the sparks. In a peaceful way, in tranquility, in a way of tranquility. Stop over here. As Hashem, today's Tuesday. Tomorrow we'll do again the Bitachon we're bringing. Thursday we'll ask Hashem finish this wonderful, wonderful.